On today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, we will be discussing a position that the Florida Panthers find themselves in, a very unfamiliar position for the first time in 2 years. What exactly is that? And comparing the goals for and goals against versus playoff and non playoff teams. We're also going to be reading your hot takes on where are debuting this Hot Take Tuesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, November 22nd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez, and you can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Philip Livingstone and Steele Roden, and the newest show on the Locked On NHL Network, Locked On NHL Prospects. So, Cats fans, as I teased at the top of the show, the Florida Panthers find themselves quite in a position that they haven't been in quite a few years. And you're probably thinking, what is that position that the Panthers find themselves in? Is the fact that the Panthers have, if you include regulation losses and overtime losses, is the first time that they've had more losses than wins on their record. And the last time that the Florida Panthers had that was March 5th of 2020. And if you remember at that time, that's right before the COVID shutdown. And the Florida Panthers were coming off a big win against the St. Louis Blues, of course, traveled to Dallas, and the season was pretty much postponed after that. It was still a very inconsistent Panthers team. Of course, the goaltending was still a question as far as that was year one of Sergei Bobrovsky's 7-year deal, and that team that showed up in Toronto was the team we expected uh, when they went out against the New York Islanders in 4 games, 3-1, and which they didn't even get up to 30 shots on goal in any of those 4 games. So what a difference a few years makes, but still, as far as comparing the two teams, uh, of course, I think this version of the Panthers is still in a better position to make the postseason and even make a run. And of course, it's really hard to talk about playoffs right now when you still got to get out of this current 3-game losing streak that the Florida Panthers are on right now. So, and let's talk about really the 3-game losing streak that the Panthers are on. I mean, hate to say it, but we've seen a few peaks and valleys from the Panthers. More peaks, of course, but the valleys, even in their President's Trophy winning season last year, we saw a 3-game losing streak at home, where the Florida Panthers even lost to all three uh, teams. Nashville was one of them, Edmonton was the other, and all three of and Columbus was the other. Backup goaltenders. David Rittich, JF Berube, Mikko Koskinen, all those three. And, those are the weird parts of a season. But this year, this might, there, as far as this specific season, there might be a situation where the Florida Panthers might lose more than 3 games. And of course, the talent on the roster isn't the same as last year. The coaching is obviously different than what it was. But as far as like mentally preparing ourselves for it, but it's just really about not allowing the valleys to be extended as much as other teams, and we don't we don't want to see that it we don't want to see it to the point where the Panthers find themselves way outside a playoff spot. And I mean, if you look at the standings right now, I mean, once again, if you listen to yesterday's episode, we spoke about the goal differential is right at 0 for the Panthers, and every single team that's below them as far as goal differential, you look at them and say, I think the Panthers are better than this team. I think the Panthers are better than that team. I think the Panthers are better than this team. Uh, and the last 3 games, what do they have in common? They're it's 5 goals against for their opposition. Of course, that first period from the Dallas game, it was really the period that was won and lost by that first period, and that's really, of course, they make a run, but too little, too late. And of course, in the Calgary game, which the Panthers never had the lead, but and they were playing catch up. It's really you could see some certain habits from last year where the Panthers are playing catch up, and as exciting as it is sometimes to cut it close, it's it's not fun when you still come out on the losing end. And of course, the comebacks last year with coming out with wins, uh, exciting, but you just don't want to continuously fall behind because uh, last year in the postseason, we saw what happened. They just couldn't find themselves in a position to come back and to get scratch out a win. And yeah, like I said, 5 plus in each of their last 3 games. But as far as goals for, there's some teams who find themselves in a above the Panthers in the standings, as far as teams who are in the postseason, as far as teams who are in prime position to be in the top 8 of the Eastern Conference. The New York Islanders, the New York Rangers, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Those are a few teams that the Florida Panthers score more than, but what do they have? They don't allow the puck to go into their net as much. I mean, there's a few teams who score more than the Panthers who also have the situation that the Panthers are in, but a little worse as far as goals against. Vancouver's one of them. More goals for the per game than the Panthers, but almost more than half a goal more against per game than the Panthers. Buffalo's the same thing. More goals for, but more goals against. So and 3.232 goals per game for the Panthers with it'll win you a lot of games most nights. I mean, last year for the Panthers, it was 4.11 goals per game, and it's not a position where the Panthers can just outshoot and outscore all their problems continuously as far as that. I mean, the Panthers again more losses than wins for the first time since March 5th of 2020. So it's been a while for this team. More than 2 seasons. So, and that was a run where the Panthers were coming off a big emotional win against the St. Louis Blues. Go to Dallas, get stuck there right before the COVID shutdown, and then the Toronto bubble happens. Of course, the no expectations for what the Florida Panthers were going to do when they arrived in Toronto for that play-in against the New York Islanders, where they lost in 4, couldn't generate more than 28 shots on goal on Semyon Varlamov and the New York Islanders, and of course the New York Islanders advance. Lots of questions, and of course that's where Bill Zito comes in and just turns this team around. Even though I think that this version of the Panthers is way better than that uh, version of the Panthers. I mean, still only 3 players remain from that team, and Sergei Bobrovsky, Aaron Ekblad, and Alexander Barkov in as that from that 2020 team to this 2022-23 team, and they've accomplished a lot. They of course, the a playoff series win, as far as when we talk about like the history of this franchise and the drought that they've had. I consider it this tenure right now for Bill Zito a success. It's really hard right now. Yes, I know it's hard right now to really see this losing streak. Is like, how can you be impressed with what Bill Zito is doing? but they've still accomplished a lot. And when you look at, still looking ahead at past this season, I still think there's still much room for Bill Zito and company to still make this a contender for for years to come. But in the next segment, we are going to start reading some of your hot takes for this Florida Panthers team, and I will be reacting to your hot takes as well. And towards the end of the show, I will be giving a hot take myself on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you all about Bet Online, and Bet Online is your number one source for all things betting, with betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get all the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. We've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at betonline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to getting your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Second segment here on this Tuesday, November 22nd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. And we're debuting a little something here on the show. As you know, the Florida Panthers have a few days off, and it gives me an opportunity to not only discuss more of the state of the team, but also to get you guys involved in the show as well. I mean, this show is for you guys, right? I mean, yeah, I'm behind the microphone. Yeah, I talk to you guys about the state of the team, but of course, what is a show without you guys giving your reactions and your takes when it comes to state of the team? And just I can't promise that I'll read them all, but I will try my best to read as much as I can. But let's start with Evan's story. At Evan Story 6. Hot take though. I love him. But let's move on from Gudis and go younger. Ditch the stalls as well. I have to look more at the advanced stats for how Radko Gudis has looked in the last few games, but I mean Radko Gudis has been off to a great start this season, and the pair of him and Mahura has just been like peanut butter and jelly as far as the start of the season. And I think of course he took a really bad penalty on Sunday against the Columbus Blue Jackets, but I'm not ready to get rid of Radko. Yeah, he's on an expiring contract, and but I'm not ready to ditch Radko. As far as the stalls, the Panthers are stuck with them. Unfortunately, both on 35 plus contracts as well. So going to be as far as the stalls. Unfortunately, they're stuck with them, but we can still. It doesn't mean that we still. It doesn't mean that we don't have to voice our frustrations. It's okay to voice your frustrations about them. Go ahead, Panther fans. Uh, at Dragon's Quest says Dalpy over Eric Stahl. A little funny. Zach Dalpe has continued to score some clutch goals for the Charlotte Checkers this season down in the AHL. And also, speaking of AHL, Charlotte, Grigory Denisenko got the game tying goal against the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins and the game winner in the shootout yesterday for the Charlotte Checkers to come out with a win last night. At R954 King RR, excuse me. Panthers get their stride around All-Star break, making their next push at the right time this year. Just hope it's not too late at that point. That sounds familiar. That kind of sounds like the Bob Bugner years. Yeah, I don't want to be in that position again. So let's have it come earlier, please, for the love of God. uh, at always belt Belit. Excuse me. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Better goaltending equals more wins. Can't be successful with sub 900 goaltending. Bob plays like last year, and we're in top of the conference. Yep. Uh, Obviously, if you look at Sergei Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight, it's just really two completely different different results as far as the play on the ice, and of course the wins coming for the Panthers. I believe Sergei Bobrovsky's record is not 4-5-1. His save percentage is 888 and a 3.62 GAA. So with and Spencer Knight averaging less than a goal given up per game. Of course, Spencer Knight comes in for Sergei Bobrovsky and only gives up one goal when being pulled. And of course, I do also feel like the Florida Panthers do, as far as the defense around Spencer Knight, I also do believe that they play slightly better around him, helping him out slightly more than what they have when Bobrovsky is in the net. At demonic eclipse. Not worried in the slightest. The team bounces back and will eventually find their groove. Not a big fan of coaching thus far, though, and that should be changed. But it is what it is. This last year has been the most promise that Panthers have shown, and we got to hold on to that. And coaching is part of the problem for this Panthers team. One day it's the power play getting going, but even strength they can't. Another day it's the odd man rushes given up when previously their they the odd man rushes have been eliminated. So it's always something. So it does go back to the coach when it comes to that, because at this time at this we got to ask ourselves this question. We'll actually discuss that more on Wednesday's episode with Jacob Winans. But let's put the question out there. What is the Panthers' identity? Think about it. What is their identity? And hold on to that, and we'll discuss that with Jacob Winans tomorrow on the show. At RPB Bills fan. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, Buffalo could have used a little bit of sun this week to actually play on their home field, but they yeah, they couldn't even play in their own stadium when they complained about the sun in South Florida for over a week, when we heard that all week when they took that L. But he says, I think it's time to move on from the Stahl brothers. Both have been okay on the PK, but a liability on 5-on-5. Time to give Kierstead and Sordiff a look. Man, I would love to see Justin Sordiff. I can't wait to see Justin Sordiff on the Panthers. It might not be this year. Chances are we might see Anton Levchi earlier than Justin Sordiff as well. We might even see Grigor Denisenko get an opportunity as well. That's assuming that the Florida Panthers move out some cap to create some space right now when Anthony Duclair does come back. And we'll discuss more about who, even though it's kind of an obvious. If you've listened to the show on who I've talked about on who to move out for the Panthers to create those opportunities, but that I would love to see Justin Sordiff and Matt Kierstead. He's playing on the top pair with Lucas Carlson down in Charlotte most nights as well. So Matt Kierstead's getting his opportunities, as next year, as part of his contract, will be a one-way deal. So that structure of the contract that he has means that next year will be his chance to be a consistent stay on this roster. At NBACE, Neil Bennett. Hey, what's up, Neil? The offense will come around. Too much talent, too many shots. Hunches, Spencer Knight will gradually become option 1A for goalie by Christmas. The D, yuck, says it in all caps. Ditch the stalls and go young. Can't be worse. Also, a few fans for blaming ownership for not caring/spending. The team is at the salary cap. Not spending is not the issue. Bad contracts by previous GM put them in a tough spot, and we're feeling the pain this year. Next year, with some cap space, should be better. I love the positivity, and and I'm mostly, for the most part, I'm an optimist when it comes to this team, because of what I've seen the last few years, and still a lot of the leadership here is still with the team. So I'm still very optimistic that the Panthers can still create a good future for this team. But when I do tell, I'm gonna go kind of back to that when I give my hot take in segment number 3, and how, even though I do believe in the future, there has to be something done in order for that to look better. And I'll provide that in the third segment. At give me food underscore 84. Hey, what's up, Daniel? So Knight is going to go on a straight up tear and take over the crease full time by Christmas. Yeah, a lot of Spencer Knight being in the full time start. I mean, we are 10 minutes away from the Florida Panthers taking the ice for practice today at the Panthers Ice Den in Coral Springs. And we'll by the time the show ends, we won't know who the starter is for the Panthers. We'll discuss that more tomorrow. But I really do believe that tomorrow's starter will be Spencer Knight. You got to give a with how the team has performed with Bobrovsky. I think that Spencer Knight, at least for tomorrow, should be the starter for the for the Panthers. At Ali M16 says, still finding the chemistry. With as many shots as we take, they will start going in. I predict after the first of the year, we will make a turn for the better. I mean, it's valid because let's go back to even the scoring last year. I mean, the Panthers were having a hard time winning games on the road. They went a full month without a road win, and they still ended up winning the President's Trophy and went on a tear. Of course, when Aaron Ekblad goes down and they go with that 5 forward power play unit, that's when the power play really took off too. Towards the end of the season, to get into the top 5 in power play percentage. Uh, so there's an opportunity for the Panthers to still make something out of this season, of course. But of course, right now the Panthers are in a right now in a rough stretch, and it's tough, and lot of course, a lot of hot takes, and of course, we're reading them, but lot of hot takes that I don't necessarily agree with neither, but um, of course, you're gonna have that in every fan base, and not just the NHL, but in all sports. But in the third and final segment, we are going to continue your reading your hot takes on the show, and of course, giving a hot take myself for this Tuesday, November 22nd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. We're going to read those next. But first, we're going to tell you all about Simply Safe. If you thought about securing your home security but have been putting it off, you'll want to listen up. Right now, Locked On Panthers listeners can order the number one rated Simply Safe home security system for 50% off. This is their biggest offer of the year, and you don't want to miss it. Simply Safe named the best home security system of 2022 by News and World Report, a third year in a row. In an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use Fast Protect technology exclusively from Simply Safe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real, so you can get priority police response. Simply Safe is the new home security with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and out, smarter ways to detect motion that alert you only when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. 24/7 professional monitoring service costs less than $1 a day, less than half of the price of ADT's traditional professionally installed systems. With the top rated Simply Safe app, stay in complete control of your system. Anytime, anywhere. Arm or disarm, unlock for a guest, access your cameras, or adjust system settings. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system I recommend. Get 50% off any new Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/LockedOnNHL. This is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplysafe.com/LockedOnNHL. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Third and final segment here on this Tuesday, November 22nd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, and continuing to read your hot takes on the state of the Panthers. And we're going to try to do this every Tuesday, by the way. But if there's a game on a Monday, uh, and we're doing a post game for a Tuesday, chances are we won't be doing Hot Take Tuesdays when we do a post game wrap up show for the Panthers. But continuing on, uh, at Kevy underscore K saying, we don't block shots. We pull our D up into every ozone opportunity. Yes, we are facing some very crappy puck luck, but we need to rely on top forwards creating chances and have the D, including Montour and Ekblad, delivering hits and blocks, not just firing off shots. And looking back at even the game against Columbus, when you look at shot attempts and shots that went to the net unblocked, which for the analytics community that's called Fenwick, uh, of the amount of block shot, the amount of shots that the Columbus Blue Jackets attempted 5-on-5. You know how many of them were actually blocked by the Panthers? Three. So Kevy underscore Keg does have a point as far as the Panthers blocking shots, and of course, the we've seen a lot of the Panthers of defensemen generating a lot of chances on the rush and going too much into the O zone, so that, and of course, a forward having to go back to stay on the blue line, and then of course when there's a transition going the other way, the forward, of course, not having the skill of a defenseman, has to be the one going back, and it puts the Panthers in a really tough position for them. At G40 Cal, need to allow Bob to walk. We are taking the hit whether he plays or doesn't, which is true. But Sergei Bobrovsky having a bad season, it will be a detriment to the Panthers as far as multiple ways. I mean, the obvious one is the contract, but number two, probably the more important one, is trade value in not this upcoming offseason, but next offseason. The the contract for Sergei Bobrovsky goes from a full no from goes from a no move clause to a modified no trade clause, a 16 team no trade clause. So of course we eventually want to see Spencer Knight take the crease and be between the pipes, but we also got to be a little realistic on a possibility of a trade. And right now, with this Bob performance, right now he doesn't have much trade value right now for the Panthers, and he's got to sign off on a trade too. So that doesn't help. Performance plus him signing off on a trade. As of right now, the Florida Panthers are stuck with him. At K Facette says Maurice might have been a mistake, but it's early in the season. If we get to 30 games and are a 500 team, then Bill Zito may need to make a change. Paul Maurice is not getting fired in year one. I'll say that. If maybe if the Florida Panthers miss the playoffs, he might consider it. Uh, I mean, they're not paying. As far as I know, they're not paying Joel Quenneville anymore because he resigned from his position. So, resignation versus being fired, uh, that will take a lot of financials off the book for the Panthers if they went the firing route for Joel Quenneville. So that might have made it easier. But as far as that, I don't think Vinny Viola will want to pay two coaches at once, especially when you're just signed Maurice recently. Uh, at Mike underscore in underscore WP, which I assume West Palm Beach. Okay, I believe in these players. Kachuk has been good. Carter too. Not much else though. Guess playoff hockey system is shooting most point shots, giving up a ton of goals in the least amount of shots possible. Yeah, I mean, Kachuk has been a treat. Even though, I mean, just looking of just wrote a few Kachuk stats right before even recording this. I mean, even strength points is at 19, multi point games with 8, and leading teams in shots on goal, 1 point in each of the last 4 and 14 in the last 17. So Kachuk has been a treat, and he's been the least of the problems for the Panthers. And of course, Carter Verhaeghe leading the team in goals, has 4 multi-goal games. Amazing. And Gus Forsling, right now he is on a 5 game assist streak. So another individual performance that, even though the Florida Panthers aren't getting team results, there's a few bright spots for players right now. At Bally Mark 69, the vibe of the team is off. Why, I'm not sure. Last year I was excited to watch every game. This year not so much. I remember the coach said to evaluate the team after 20 games. We're past that and it doesn't look promising. I'm not sure if I'm gonna go that far as not looking promising, because there's still many games to play, and of course Jeff Merrick says that it's not really an 82 game season, it's 82 1 game seasons as far as reevaluating, and of course opinions can change from time to time, and as far as promising, I'm not sure if I agree with that. At 47 to full, who what's up, Alexander? It's been one of the my followers since the very beginning of me hosting this show. uh he says, I will give him more time. We have a new coach, new system, 4 new forwards, 4 new defensemen, and we are stuck in the minimum roster because of the cap. Bob needs to be better. He needs to make the important stop, like against the Caps, and we will be in the playoffs. Just need time. There are some positive responses which I like from this from this tweet that I sent out. This team is a legitimate cup contender with at least average finishing and goaltending. That is from Scotty Mascotti. Uh, there's more saying of fire Maurice, fire Maurice. I'm not gonna repeat reading all of those. Uh, at Theo S45, exactly where anyone with common sense should have expected to be plus minus 4 points. Worse than last year, looking to the offseason makes moves with a lot of freed cap space. A lot of talking about next year. Of course, I've talked about a lot of next year uh, as well as the future. Bill Zito, hold on. Before I read this, let me read the at T bar underscore 1020. Bill Zito took a team that had so much momentum and totally dismantled them, hired a coach whose style doesn't fit the strength of his players, and then getting rid of Hubis and Uyghur. The list goes on and on. Hmm. As far as style of play doesn't fit the strength of the players, I'm not totally sold on that take, but I can see through 20 games on how one might think. And of course, we saw this. The playoffs are all that matters, and a lot of people are saying that they miss Andrew Burnett. But when the offense just gets can't generate any goals in the postseason, and your goaltender even was even great in that, where they were the least of the problems. They're I don't know. I don't know if it's about I don't know if I as far as Bill Zito making that move and the experience with Paul Maurice, I'm not sure if the style of it fits. I do somewhat agree with it, but there's still so much time for the players to get into Paul Maurice's style of play. At forward 44, Maurice was a terrible hire. I said it from the moment he was chosen. He was bought to tighten things up and make us more of a playoff style. However, we just give up more playoff. We just give up as many goals as before, if not more, and we can't score anymore. His system are not meshing with this roster. I mean, the goals are coming. It's just not to the point of last year. You come on, guys. We can't expect 4.11 goals per game for this Panthers team every single game for this team. Again, like I said at the very beginning of the show, even before reading your hot takes, you can't outscore all your problems. So, the Panthers, they like I read the teams that they were ahead of who are in the playoff race. It's just eliminating the high quality chances at the other end, and of course rushes. That's what's gonna be the key to generating more wins and being back in a playoff position, which right now the Panthers are currently out of, but there's still plenty of time for them to get inside the top 8. Again, look at the standings and look at all the teams below them with a minus goal differential, and tell me if there's a team there that is better than the Panthers. I'll wait. But those are all the responses that I got as far as hot takes, as far as this Hot Take Tuesday, a debut edition of this on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. If you're listening to this on the YouTube, comment below on your hot takes. And also, if you're on Twitter or even email, you can email me at lockedonflapanthers@gmail.com. If you want to tell me your hot takes on the team, we will try to get these on every Tuesday as far as reading your hot takes on the team. And with that, with me reading your hot takes, now it's time for me to give a hot take myself. And going back to the future of this team, even though I believe in it, is that if you miss the postseason this year, you will destroy any positive momentum that you created in the last two seasons as far as culture and as far as getting this fan base to buy in to what the Panthers are selling. Because when they were winning all those games and they were on pace to winning the President's Trophy and the division, there's the conversation more around town was really talking about really the Panthers. And of course the marketing behind it has very well improved, and and it helps that they're opening a new practice facility in downtown Fort Lauderdale, the War Memorial Coliseum, which will open in 2023. But if you don't make the postseason, you will ruin all that momentum, even with freed up cap space, and there will just be more questions and questions and questions than answers. And there'll be, and people will be looking at the coach, people will be looking at Bill Zito, people will be looking at Vinny Viola as well, as far as the direction of this team. Do I believe they eventually end up in the postseason? I do believe so, but there's still a lot of work to be done in order to be up in that top eight, and you you got to make the playoffs. You have to. You, there's no excuses for this Panthers team to at least not be at least the last wild card spot. And you know what? After all the cap troubles and only signing 1 year deals and being a roster of 20 players, if you're able to make the playoffs still, I personally think it's an accomplishment for this team, because I'm not expecting Stanley Cup championship. I think the ceiling is Eastern Conference championship. I know we've seen the Nashville Predators be an A seed and go all the way to the Cup, the Stanley Cup final, not winning it, and the LA Kings actually winning it in 2012. But you just got to get into the dance, and for the Panthers, they need to get into the dance in order to continue creating that momentum into next season. And if you're able to, then the long term look for this team looks so much better. Thank you once again for listening to this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Like I said, if you're on the YouTube, comment below on any episode really, and I will be reading your hot takes throughout every, or well, most Tuesday episodes of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. As we're going to try continuing doing hot take Tuesdays on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But thank you guys so much for your tweets and your replies, and we will try to be doing more of these. Thank you guys so much. But in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Make sure to subscribe to all the shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and the newest show on the Locked On NHL network, Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, make sure to listen to today's episode of Locked On Sports Today. Locked On Sports Today gives you a 20-minute or less podcast on the biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, and big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. So Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.